with Classics and Beyond, and today we're here at the Ferst Center for the Arts at Georgia Tech. We're going to have a wonderful conversation with Ethel Quartet. Come with me. Corina Brito, and this is Classics and Beyond. The string quartet is a musical group of 4 string players, usually 2 violins, a viola, and a cello. Some current string quartets are expanding the role of the ensemble from purely performing to include composing their own work, improvising, collaborating with different composers and artists from different mediums. And here's where Ethel comes into play. Ethel is a string quartet that performs original music, often written for them or by them. Its members, having had rigorous classical training, have studied in the best music schools in the US. Their project Documerica is one of their largest undertakings to date. It is defined on their Kickstarter page as a multimedia meditation on America's relationship with the environment, inspired by 1970s photography and 21st century composers. Let's go and talk to Ethel. All of you come from a very rigorous classical training. Dorothy and Ralph from Juilliard, Kip, you from Berkeley, guy. And I was just going to say Berkeley has a very strong jazz program. And then Tema from Manhattan School of Music. How has been this transition of playing the so-called traditional quartet repertoire from the conservatory train to change to become not only the performer but also the collaborate, be totally engaged in the collaborative process, the creative process? How it has been for you guys to begin with?
It is an interesting observation, even just across this line. Mm-hmm. That there's a wide generational difference. Mm-hmm. And I certainly did come from a time when none of us were trained or even challenged to go into that, into another style. The understanding was that there was a very closely prescribed training, you did it that way, and you exited into a predictable career. And I think Ralph, to some extent, were really creatures of a sort of misbegotten generation where we had all of this beautiful technology and experience and training, but the application was shifting so fast that it wasn't at all clear what we would end up doing. We patched it up a little bit here and there and watched things change and tried to adapt. But we were also aware, at the moment that Ethel started, that was when the presenters and managements had also had to acknowledge that things were no longer working the way they had always assumed, and they were looking for something to attract a younger audience, something that would be more of the time. And I think we've passed that. That was a battle that had to be, fought, and it's done. The younger players are coming along with massive new skills and much wider perspectives, and their teachers are not treating them like that either. So it's great. The culture has shifted. I think that may not be universal around the world, around the country, but in the hotbeds of the creative culture, it really is moving. So I think they came already with an attitude that improvisation was very exciting and they should try it, and of course Kip's world is in a whole different, actually very highly developed area of expertise, but that's also, it's regarded as a peer culture. It's not regarded as a kind of a poor cousin, which it used to be.
Right, 70 years ago when musicians would go and play their symphony gig and then go off and kind of like go hobnob with the jazz guys down at the club, and they wouldn't tell their friends about it or whatever, and they'd play until 4 and then show up to their symphony gig wasted the next day.
Now we are here with Jason Freeman. He's doing this collaborative work with Ethel tonight at the Ferst Center. And this involved lots of computers. I see lots of tables set up here. Jason, could you tell us a little bit about this work?
Sure. This is some software we're using tonight that we've developed over the last 3 years. in our lab here at Georgia Tech, the Georgia Tech Center for Music Technology. And it enables laptop musicians to actually write computer code in real time during performance to algorithmically generate music notation that the members of Ethel tonight will actually be sight reading as they appear on computer monitors.
So how long does it take for you to write the code of the algorithm and to pop into the screen and they can read it?
We've taken some pains to create a language where we can type things very quickly because we know we have to do this live in concert. And so you type one line of code, it takes a few seconds, and then the music shows up within a few beats.
That's going to be certainly a challenge to be able to read the music on the spot.
Yes. Well, what we've done to make that easier is that we asked Ethel volunteered to compose some music for us for this. So they wrote some little musical fragments. Those are the building blocks of this performance. And what we do live in performance is take those and transform them in different ways. We might combine two different fragments together. We might reverse all the elements in a fragment or shuffle all the notes around in them or transpose it, do all kinds of things like that so that the music is somewhat familiar to them, but also a little bit new and strange, and the ways that it gets combined in every performance is unique, bringing together elements of composition, improvisation, computer programming, and computer music.
So what was the motivation behind this process?
There were a couple of motivations. One was we wanted to understand how improvisation happens in groups a little bit and help audiences to understand, because everything that we type in, not just the code that we type in, but also the text chats that we use to coordinate amongst each other as to what we're actually doing in performance, all gets projected for the audience to actually see. So they can see on this giant screen everything we're typing, and see what we're trying to do, and get this window into what's actually going on. How do musicians communicate with each other in performance, and how do they improvise together? These things are normally invisible and kind of secret from the audience, become very public and very exposed. Another thing that we wanted to do was to give this experience of writing computer code to make music to everyone. So we created a language, like I said, it's very easy. With one line of code, you can generate lots of music. So we worked with classical musicians and actually taught them in a matter of a couple of hours how to program in this language as well, and done performances with them. We've worked with high school students. We've worked with lots of different people of varying musical and technical backgrounds.
So this is not the first time this is being done?
This is the first time we're doing this particular performance with the music that Ethel's provided us, but we've been using this in performances over the last several years.
Jason, I have a
now,
question. Yeah.
Ralph here from Ethel is going to come in and add a little bit to this information.
I have a question because what you just said there caused me to think, could this not be also used as a bridge to open improvisation to folks who don't improvise? If you say, here's your material, you can choose to put it up there, and then sort of in a partnership you're improvising together?
Absolutely. One of the things I found as a composer working with classical musicians over many, many years is that many of them are very reluctant to improvise, or they say they don't know how. I think this comes in a long tradition of experimental musical works by people like John Zorn and George Lewis and folks like that try to formalize a structure within a particular performance for how to improvise, whether it's through some kind of game or some set of rules, whatever that might be. So in this case, the programming language is essentially the set of rules about how you can manipulate and work with material and collaborate with other people in the ensemble during a performance.
And, sorry.
So I was just thinking here, so we probably will change the definition of improvisation. Or we have to have two kinds of improvisation. One that's coming from a computer, or from the programmer, I guess I would say, and then the other one that might come from the performer.
Yes, and there's a formal name for this in the scholarly community of computer musicians. It's called live coding. You sit down at a laptop and make computer code in performance.
Huh.
And as Jason and I are actually playing the same role tonight, I'm sort of his avatar a little bit, and he'll be chatting to me and to his colleagues, but you'll see things up there sometimes. Please play softer, Ralph. And
he might embellish it or extend it in different ways as well, and then I might respond to that. So there's a
by
dialogue
hitting me
going
if
on.
I don't like it, if he doesn't like it.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's something that you not necessarily give him everything. You're giving something back.
I mean, if I wanted to specify exactly how I wanted the music to sound, I would just make it come out of speakers, and then I would have complete control at my laptop of how I wanted it to sound. But that is not nearly as interesting. It's much more interesting to give it to an incredible musician who's been, perfecting his craft for decades, and to say, well, here's some music. what do you make of it? What do you think of it? And then it really becomes a collaboration. And it's something, it's not just a collaboration, it's a collaboration that's unfolding live in concert. It's different every time we do it.
How is it for you to come into a group that has been already formed, has been, Dorothy and Ralph has been together for quite a while? How it is to be the new kid on the block?
Thankfully, I don't feel that I have to live with the ghosts of my predecessors in any way. And that's really to Dorothy and Ralph's credit that, from the moment go, they understood that we're in the process of playing music, and in order to play music, the air has to be clear. In order for good vibes to come off the stage, the air has to be clear. I think that the violinists who we have succeeded are incredible players, and I certainly really enjoyed listening and learning from their stuff on recordings. I'm happy to bring my own sound to the band. There's something nice about recognizing what I can learn, and there's something nice about just kind of deciding, I'm just going to do it my way, just for the sake of that, because that's what comes most naturally, or that's what's the most fun. I don't know. I think the hardest thing, far more than any personnel or any emotional dimension, is just the sheer amount of repertoire. The number of programs is high. The demand for exactitude is high. Ethel has a reputation for coming in, doing a great job. So it's a lot of music to learn, and it's a lot of music to learn to play at an extremely high level. But it's a good challenge. It's a great challenge, and the hardest part is largely over. So I don't know, from here on out.
Unless there are programs we don't know about yet.
Yeah, right. Unless they have a program in their back pocket, they're going to say, "Oh, by the way, it's all built on cartoon music, and these are exact transcriptions that we're going to have to play, 8VA everything." And
how is it for you, Tama?
I don't think Kip could have summed it up much more accurately. I think that it's a great thing to come in where you're sort of a cog in a machine, but 1/4 of a machine is a pretty good proportion to be, I think. So, I think it takes a long time to find balance, but it's definitely a way to learn a lot about one another very quickly, the way we've all been thrown into it together. So it's been a great experience.
Based on that, I was curious to find out, how do you guys find replacement musicians? What is the audition process?
Oh my God.
I have one thought about this. It's just I never ever considered it to be replacements.
Okay. Good point.
Because the first Ethel was the first Ethel, and then when we shifted and we had a new member, it became a different thing. And right now we're such a different animal now.
Yeah.
And
It's like finding a new boyfriend.
who you eventually marry, because hey, we're all married now. The process was quite grueling, actually, and I don't know from your side, but for us, we ended up actually having to audition 2 people at this very same time. We had no control, as it were, in the scientific context. So actually, we had pairs of.
or in the real context.
There we go. We had, I guess, 7 or 8 pairs of people that we auditioned together, with the idea that if we liked person A from this group and person B from this group, we'd put them together and see how that fit. The strangest thing was that these 2 actually did their audition together. And you guys could take it from there. We loved them immediately, and
blend.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Chemistry.
And what happened when you were on your way out? Was it?
I was walking. Well, we were walking in, and there was this short lady with a violin case. It's like, hey, you're probably auditioning for
my new
this
friend
thing.
and enemy.
So you're.
Yeah, it's a funny position to be put in
Yeah,
where you
totally.
because obviously we have to be cordial and do well with one another in audition, but also you need to probably try to appear slightly better than the other person. But fortunately, Kip and I think, have very different strengths, which is
great,
now
and
a strength of
also
the group.
to
So
Ralph and Dorothy's
it
credit,
was
'cause
a very lucky turn for both of us.
Great.
This is great. Actually, you mentioned something that was one of my questions, because when I read your website, I'm like, how do they have time? You guys have so
yeah,
many
how
projects.
do we have time?
And so much, things under your belt. It's just like you're always performing. I read something like you did 50 new premiere 50 new pieces of work, you know, and for the past 3 years, it's like,
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. Some of that we do count the works that we do with the Native American kids, for example. You know, those are brand new works, and we perform them for them, and you know, every year. It's I think sometimes like most of life is that if you had to look at it in that kind of perspective, like between now and next May, you're going to accomplish this many things, and you sort of think, how? But if you just keep walking one step at a time, you somehow manage to, you know, make things happen. Ethel has had a team for a long time of support, you know, fundraising and managing and making all kinds of the physical arrangements that have to be made around travel and other things. So it's not literally these 4 people doing everything. It's a pyramid, you know, and that's true for almost anything that comes to this level. Is you've got a pyramid of work. You maybe have the people who actually walk out on stage, but so much of the rest of the work is done by support, by professionals doing what they do well, you know. So it's wonderful, and that feels great because at a certain point you begin to feel their interest in your success, because it's their business as well. It's really nice.
Can you tell us a little bit about Documerica, because I think the audience should know more about Documerica, about this work. Sounds interesting.
Documerica was again just an interesting awareness of a photo archive generated by the Environmental Protection Agency back in the 70s. Magnificent, you know, what was it, 80,000 photos that they finally kept, where it presents a very heartfelt 10-year-long look at the state of the country and of the societies. And we realized, we were brought into contact with it and realized it was a public resource, and thought, well, it could be really wonderful to bring together some of our friends in composition to look at this and see what their response is, what kind of music flows out of them in response to these photos. So we are now in the final, you know, the final phase of having that music and bringing it into the perspective of a show in connection with visual imagery drawn from the archive. We're developing it as a very large-scale multimedia presentation, which will be premiered at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in October, and it's really exciting. It's big scale.
So you're going to select some of those pictures from the
a lot, and not, you know, quite a number. But I mean, it won't be representative of 80,000 pictures. But yeah.
And my last question is, if you had a magic wand, what would you do to keep classical music alive?
Wait, can you define classical music?
Anything that you play with violins, violas, cellos, but I guess anything that's composed that requires you to read music, that has some kind of training behind. That's what I would probably define classical music.
I don't think there's any need to wave a wand.
No?
Personally, I mean, I think that, you know, we're self-selecting in the best ways. Like the model is changing. I mean, there just simply isn't the resource to have a major symphony orchestra in every city in the country anymore. But that's okay. I mean, you know, as someone who's not affected by it, that's okay by me. But I mean, I really think that there are great composers living and working. They're here. You know, so I guess I don't feel any need to wave a wand. I feel much more passionate that we need to do something to make sure that music education is still a vital part of our education system.
At the same time, can I just, I had a wonderful, you know, moment last week when we were doing another outreach in the Quad Cities area, where every day we were at 2 or 3 different schools every day, performing our music and then talking to the audience, and many times there were full orchestra programs in the audience, or, you know, but we would ask day by day, who here plays an instrument? And 90% of the hands would go up. this kind of experience, even though we may regret that it's the funding is being drawn off, and people are still making it happen, and it's much more widely in the kids' hands than it ever was before. And the only thing that I, as a contrast, we also played for, with full respect, we played for a group of seniors, and I asked the same question. I said, who here plays an instrument? One hand went up. Because from a certain generation, this was not normal. This was not, if you were lucky, you were selected to have, or your parents, gave you lessons, something. But as a broad range, more kids have experience now than they ever did before. It's a hopeful sign. Doesn't mean anything, but it's hopeful.
Well, Dorothy, Emma, Ralph, Kip, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Corina Brito, and you just watched Classics and Beyond. See you next time.
We're Ethel,
and you're watching Best of Atlanta Concerts TV.